Well, guys, I ran into a nice little problem here. I'm covering the other half of the wing, but I thought I would go ahead and see what kind of extensions I need on my servos for my throttle, and I'm going to have to add some long extensions, which rather than just make another lead or use a lead, I'm just going to solder these and use shrink wrap around them and make it one big piece. But anyway, here's what I ran into. I got my engine out. So I'm going to mount it upward, I believe, instead of inverted. I don't think inverted is going to help. Either way, it's not going to help. One problem I ran into is where the throttle linkages on this is right dead in line with the motor mount. So I'm going to have to drill through the motor mount, because this small engine, there's no way. A lot of these 4-strokes you can rotate the carburetor around and change this to the other side, but this one won't. So I'm going to have to drill a hole through the motor mount where the tube's going to come out. Excuse me. But anyway, here's my other problem. I just set the fuel tank in it to see where my engine was going to line up and where I needed to drill. It's got a hole here for the tube for the throttle linkage, which is not going to work on this, maybe on a 2-stroke. So I'm going to have to drill it over here and go up around the fuel tank and in. Here's my problem. I just happened to set my servo down in there and get the wire in there. Okay. All well and good. I can run the linkage right down through a tube around this fuel tank. Here's my problem. Can you see the height of that? It is not going to clear the cap that goes on it. So I don't know, there might be a low profile servo that I could get, but rather than waste the money for that and time, I think I will just cut out this section here and open that up. There's some structure down in there I can get to, and I'm going to build me a servo block that sets down lower. And so I'd rather get it farther over this way anyway, where it'll be straight in line. So we're going to do a little bit of the build on that here in a little bit. Okay, I've got this all opened up now. I'm going to take this cross brace out just for now. I will put it back and reinforce it. I think if I get to make me a servo tray to mount down in there and set that down in there about like that, it'll work fine. And what I'll do is I'll take some square stock and put along this wall, since that's ply, and probably some along the back and along this wall, and then I'll take a piece of this light ply and I'll cut me out a piece to fit in there and cut out a hole for the servo to mount in, and I'll glue that down inside there. It'll of course set down inside, and then when I do that, then I'll put this back and reinforce it. But my servo arm, I'll leave it high enough that it'll clear over the top of this. I'll leave the servo arm high enough that it'll clear over the top of this cross brace right here, and we'll drill a hole and take the linkage tube right down the side of this and out to the motor. So it'll be pretty easy to do. I'll get some pieces cut out and show you what we're doing. Okay, I've got my 1/4-inch square stock. This is hardwood, doesn't weigh much, so it's not going to add much weight to it. I got a piece along each side and a piece across the back. There's still room underneath it for my wire to go under, and I will take my little homemade plumb bob, and I'll run a line down through here and tape the end of the string here and run it up in here first, and before I glue this in, and I'll run it up through the hole and tape it so that we can get a hold of it and pull the lead down through there, just like you would on a wing, but when you're doing the aileron servo. But anyway, I got me a little block cut out, and I'm just laid my servo on there where I wanted it, and marked it around it, and I'm just taking a Dremel with a little bitty disc and cutting that out. And of course that plate will all be glued in there, and got my arm over here against this wall, so the linkage will run right down that. And we'll just have to repeat this and do the same thing on the other side. But I'll go ahead and get this cut out and get her glued in. We'll show you some more in a minute. Okay, another thing I did here, got my tray cut out. It's going to lay in there like that. I took a piece of the whole section that I cut out and took a little handsaw and cut little strips off of that, and I glued them on the other side. I made this one narrower because it has to clear my square stock here. But anyway, that gives you some reinforcement. It gives you twice the thickness to when you drill your hole to screw your screw into. So you want to do that to make this piece stronger to hold that servo good. Okay, I've got my servo all mounted, test fitted. I went ahead and drilled the holes. See where they went through my little reinforcement block. Now we'll take this back out and we'll wick super glue in those holes to tighten up those threads, and then we'll mount this block in here and put the lead on the servo and get her mounted up. Okay, we're gonna solder our extension on our servo here. We'll just do one of them and show you how we're doing on that. Little wire strippers, you can get these at most hardware stores. Sears has a really good set. They're a little higher, but they're good. I think I only paid like $8 for these. They're really good ones. I like them. I've got 3 sets of them. Well, one thing you want to do when you strip your wire back, don't strip too far. I learned this by accident. I was stripping my wire back too far, and then when on a soldering it you can strip it back farther. Okay, I'm sorry, let me back up. When you build your own tips and you put your tips on here, don't strip them back too far. I had made an extension lead, servo lead for my Yak 54, and I almost lost my plane the other day. I stripped them back too far is what I did, and when I crimped the tips on it and I pushed it up in the little plastic part, over time that kind of pulled back, and the covering was pulled back too far, and the wire was actually sticking out of the back of the little tip here. So what happened, those 2 wires, 2 of them were arcing together, and I lost control of my plane, and was somehow able to control it enough to get it circled around and lined up with the runway, and it started going crazy again, just out of whack, and about the time I touched down it just went crazy and almost flipped over on me, but I got it landed without any damage. Well, I did a roll out and pull up in front of me and just let go of my radio, and the left aileron was just doing this, just buzzing up and down. And what had happened, that lead I had made, I'd stripped the wires too long, and they were sticking out of the plastic covering, and they were arcing together, and it caused that left aileron to flutter real bad on me. I was very lucky to save my plane and get it back on the ground. So when you're making leads, be real careful not to strip these too much. Now I'm going to strip them a little bit more because we're actually going to solder these 2 together. One thing you want to make sure you do is put your little piece of heat shrink over your wire before you solder this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a small piece on each one of these wires, and then over the main wire I'm going to put a heavier piece. And what I'll do is each individual wire soldered, I will heat the little small piece, and then I'll run the big piece over the whole thing and tighten it down. That way I don't have any danger of anything shorting out or getting contact. But you can strip these off about 1/4 inch or so is all you need, and we'll just do one at a time here. I've got my big piece of heat shrink on this end, and I've got my little ones over here. So let me strip this other black one here, and we'll just do one of these and then I'll finish it and come back, but I don't want to bore you too much with it. I use these little alligator clips to kind of hold it. They work really well. Got my soldering iron plugged in over here heating up. This small one will be plenty for these light wires. I have a heavy duty one for bigger stuff, but this will be fine. Now I just want to run these up here and just twist them together gently, or you can just lay them there. It doesn't matter, they don't have to be twisted. Got them laid perfectly. I don't have any frays sticking out anywhere. my solder here. Let's see if we can manage to heat this up enough. Now you want to lay your soldering iron on your wire long enough to let the wire kind of heat up also before you put your solder on it. I may have to get my big one out. It'll probably work better, but you stand a better chance of melting some of your wire like that. Yeah, this is not. I'm going to have to twist these together. Let's see here. Let me do it this way. Kind of twist them, then put them in my clip. There, that will hold them together a lot better. Now, see if I can get this wire hot enough. Clean the tip off my soldering iron there. I'll put it underneath the wire and hold it on there for just a little bit. Heat that wire itself up so it'll make the solder flow. A little bubble on it there. We'll try to get off. We don't want any sharp. Don't drop this on your leg when you're wearing shorts. It hurts. Okay, that one solder flowed real good. It's nice and tight. We can take that out of there. And what I'll do is I'll slide my heat shrink up here, and you can do this two ways. You can use a cigarette lighter or like a charcoal grill lighter, but your heat gun for your covering also works just as good. Just make sure that's evenly covered. Put that heat gun on there. And she just shrinks it up nice and snug. And we'll do each individual wire that way, try to get them the same length, and then we'll slide the big piece over all that and shrink it down. Alright, we'll be back when we get that done. We got all three of them soldered, and we're going to slide our big piece over all of those. Put the heat gun to it. Alright, there you go. Now we have a extension without having to actually have a whole bunch of connections on it. And that's good and solid. It ain't going to pull loose, and it'll thread through the framework and the wings just fine. So, okay, we'll get this thing mounted up, and then we'll just have to redo the other side. I do have one thing I want to show you here. Let me get my soldering iron out of the way before I burn myself. Lay it right here, cool off. Okay, let me get some thread. I use heavy duty coat thread, sewing thread. It's real stout and won't break real easy. We are going to take a piece of this, cut it off. Get this stuff out of the way here. We'll just make a little knot in the end of it's all we need. Let's see. Well, first off, I'll tell you, here's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to run this. We've got our tray all soldered in here for our servo and everything. I'm going to drop that down through the servo tray. This may be a little tricky. Wow, that's not going to fit through there. Okay, let me regroup here. I'll be right back. Okay, normally this is just a little Great Plains fueling probe. That's a little hole in it. Makes a great little bitty plumb bob. This works really well on your wings when you're dropping it down through your holes here to get your leads from your servos. But the slot that I left on the bottom of this servo tray I made was real thin, so what I did, I took a piece of thread, tied a little T-pin on it, and I guided it down in there, and just turned my wing up and shook it and dropped it down where I get hold of it with a pair of tweezers. So now we have a piece of thread out here that we can pull that servo lead through with. And what we'll do is tie that onto here. Maybe a little bit tricky to get started in my hole, but I think I can. If I have to, I'll use a pair of tweezers. We're going to tie a knot in this end. Once we get it through this little bitty gap, it won't be a problem. It'll pull right down through there. So, get hold of this and kind of guide it. Like I say, I may have to get in here with my tweezers to get this started. I think I can. Torque that up there like that. Yeah, there it went. Alright, we're good. Now, alright, we don't want to pull our string loose for our servo lead. Kind of tangled up in it here somehow. Get a hold of this. Pull that out. Cut that off. Be careful not to cut your wire. There we go. Now, wow, my covering that I put on there is going to be a little heavy. I just didn't think about that. I should have cut that hole out. I may have to go in there with a razor knife and do it yet. Let me do a little trimming. I'll be right back. Okay, I just took my tweezers and went in there and poked out a little bit of the balsa. And then we'll get our screws in here. And servos. Batteries are getting low. A little handy dandy screwdriver. Find the other screw. There it is. Yeah. There's my tweezers. Get it started. Alright. We have this out of here. We have one remodel servo tray. Now I got plenty of room. I can even put a quick connect on top of this and have room for my my lid to fit on here, and without any problem. And I actually got it over farther where I wanted it to this side, because the tube is going to come right down through here. We'll drill a hole in this and come right down beside the fuel tank and right out through the motor mount there. So down here in the front. Well, that's going to work good. Now all I got to do is do the other wing, and I'm almost done covering the other one, and we'll get this, hopefully get this wing put together today and the engine and stuff mounted on it. I've got a fun fly coming up May the 19th that I'm shooting for, so I got to hurry on this thing. Alright, we'll be back in a bit. Alright, we've got one wing completely finished. Engine mounted, got throttle all working. Got get it turned over here. Servo linkage all hooked up on this aileron. Haven't set throws yet, they're just at 100%, but that one's all done. Get the other half finished up, get her together, and then start on the fuselage. Well, boys and girls, there you have it. Mess and all. The wing is completely finished, except for putting the prop on this engine. I have to order another one. I accidentally ordered a pusher prop the other day, but anyway, there it is in all its glory. Sure hope I don't kill it the first flight. But got a 65-inch wingspan. Now if I can just get the fuselage done in the next week or so. These graphics, my friend Bradgraphics.com, does these stickers, and he really does a good job on these. You can get all different color schemes and fonts and everything you want. He made the big ones there, and he also made these little ones there, orange with a little, just, you can't hardly see it, but a little purple outline on them. But give him a call sometime, or give him, holler at him on the internet. He's got a phone number on there. He can do just about anything you can imagine. Look at his website. He sells a lot of other stuff besides stickers too. He's got really good deals on servo leads and Y harnesses and switches and things like that. So look him up, give him a try. Alright, we're going to end this segment on this one, and we'll move on to the fuselage.